registered dietitian nutritionist. I'm also a licensed dietitian, a certified diabetes educator, certified intuitive eating coach, and a national certified counselor. I have a private practice where I offer nutrition counseling and consulting, both in person out of my downtown Easton office and also virtually from the comfort of wherever you may be. So today I'm going to talk with you about meal planning for an optimal vegan diet. I'm going to pass this around. If anyone would want to try a free 3-day trial of our plant-based vegan meal plans, or wants a digital copy of the handouts, just leave your email address and it'll end up in the back with Mackenzie in the black dress. So if you don't get to sign up now, you can always sign up on your way out. Okay, so a vegan diet is a diet of integration, not elimination. A lot of people tend to think about a vegan diet as you can't eat A, B, and C, but try to think of it more as you can eat X, Y, and Z. A vegan diet is a compassionate, healthful way of eating. It means that you refrain from consuming any foods of animal origins. So that means not only eliminating meat, eggs, dairy, and fish, but also avoiding foods like honey, in which the animal played a role in the food's creation. A vegan diet is still a very well-balanced diet consisting of proteins, carbs, and healthy fats. The goal is to select foods that will contribute to your overall health rather than undermine it. Foods like whole grains, starchy vegetables like yams, proteins like legumes, tofu and tempeh, nuts and seeds, healthy oils or healthy fats, and fruits and veggies. Following a vegan diet can help with lowering blood cholesterol levels, lower your blood pressure. It can help with sustaining a desirable body weight. It may help you improve your dietary fiber intake and also could help increase your longevity. So there's definitely some benefits to following this diet. But meal planning is an important part to following a vegan diet to make sure that you're getting all the nutrients that you need and that you're having a good balance. Studies also show that meal planning has a positive impact on your heart health, weight, and overall diet quality. Just some of the benefits to meal planning include saving time and money, reducing mealtime stress, reducing the what to eat or I don't know what to eat stress during the week, feeling more in control of what you're eating. You're more likely to choose a more balanced, healthier option rather than just grabbing whatever's the quickest or most convenient. And you're also more likely to stay on track with your dietary goals and less likely to engage in some impulse eating. And those are just some of the many, many benefits. So to help simplify meal planning or break it down for you, I've tried to come up with 5 tips to help make that process a little bit smoother and get you started. So those 5 tips for meal planning would include designating a specific day for meal planning, checking your fridge and pantry, simplify, prepare for multiple meals, and then start a recipe collection. So let's start with designating a day for meal planning. Planning ahead is key, but it's often easier said than done, especially as you get going with your week and all the different obligations you may have going on. So you have to be organized, but find a system that works for you. Designate a day for meal planning and set aside purposeful time, not only for the planning, but also for your grocery shopping and meal prep. Take a look at your schedule, and when you decide what day would work best, schedule it in just like you would an appointment so that you have that time as like an appointment with yourself. For a lot of people, Sundays tend to be a good day before you get into the rush of the work week. For other people, they find dividing it into 2 days, like Sunday and Wednesday might be good to add a midweek grocery shopping day for maybe some of the produce items that may spoil quicker, and a midweek cooking day. Take a look at your calendar. Taking a look at your calendar will also help you see what your week looks like, so you can see which days you may be busier, have more going on, where you might want to choose something easier, like just having leftovers or a crock-pot meal. It'll also help you see which days you should be packing your meals or snacks so that you're more prepared. Overall, deciding what to make in advance will help to create less stress during the week when it comes to surrounding your meals. Tip number 2 would be to check your fridge and pantry. So use what you already have to create new meals. It's a good way to prevent or reduce waste, but being resourceful may even help you come up with new ideas that you may not have considered before. Keep your pantry stocked with staples like nut milks, tofu, nut butters, whole grains, and then some frozen fruits and vegetables. And as you get into the habit of meal planning and meal prepping, you'll be able to build up your freezer inventory to have some additional homemade freezer meals or some items that you can compile into a meal. Tip 3 would be to simplify. So don't make it any harder on yourself than it needs to be. Create weekly dinner themes that are fun and simple, and then within those themes you can easily mix it up. So like you could do Buddha Bowl Monday, Taco Tuesday, Pasta Wednesday, Stir Fry Thursday, or Pizza Friday, and then within those mix it up. So one week you might have pesto pizza, and then next week you might have a spinach artichoke white bean pizza. To make meal planning quick and easy, I personally tend to plan out dinners and then have leftovers for lunch and plan something that I can prepare ahead of time for breakfast, like overnight oats or chia pudding. And then for snacks, I'll choose whole foods like veggies and hummus, or fruit or trail mix with nuts and seeds, all which don't really require too much proper time. Tip 4 would be to prepare for multiple meals. Make larger batches and freeze leftovers to repurpose them throughout the week. Doubling or even tripling your recipes is a good way to build up your freezer inventory so that you have those homemade freezer meals that are going to be ideally more balanced because you know what you're putting into them and you're in charge of those ingredients. Sometimes even though you have a plan for what you want to eat during the week, you may come home and just not feel like having what you had planned, or you may not feel like cooking, and that's when your freezer stash would come in handy. Whether you make extra portions to freeze or you're freezing some leftovers, you want to make sure that you're always labeling and dating the food you put into the freezer. When doing your prep, you could also cut up some extra fruits and vegetables to keep on hand for snacks throughout the week or for meals that you may be preparing later on. You're much more likely to eat those fruits and vegetables if they're washed, cut, and ready to go. You could also roast a large batch of vegetables so that they're ready for use throughout the week. Veggies add a good amount of fiber, vitamins and minerals, antioxidants, so they're a really excellent way to help bulk up a variety of your meals. Carrots, asparagus, zucchini, cauliflower, and peppers all roast well, so you can make a big batch of those to have on hand. And then you could use them as side dishes, throw them in a salad, or chop a sandwich with them, or throw them in a bowl. Grains, like whole grains, like whole wheat pasta, quinoa, farro, rice, and barley can also be repurposed throughout the week. So you can make a big batch of those and then portion them out and use them for a base in a bowl, or in a main dish like fried rice, or as a side. Grains usually last in the fridge for about 2 to 3 days. So if you portion out different portions of them and put them in your freezer, then you'll always have a serving for later on in the week, or when you're doing more of a meal compilation rather than cooking a full meal. Cooking a big pot of beans would be another time saver, and they also freeze well. You could make a big pot of beans and then repurpose those throughout the week in like black bean tacos, or to throw on a salad or have as a side dish, or to mix in with some rice. Soups, broths, smoothies, and sauces all freeze well in ice cube trays. And then like veggie-based casseroles, whole grain wrapped burritos, and veggie burgers can all be frozen individually. Some other good make-ahead items would be overnight oats, freezer oatmeal cups, chia pudding, mason jar salads, Buddha bowls, and of course fruit and veggies. Trail mix, parfaits, different stir-fry or crock-pot recipes would also be good to make ahead and have on hand. And then tip 5 would be to start a recipe collection. So keep a list of your go-to meals that are quick and healthy, the ones that you've tried and you really like, and then reference that list when you're out of ideas or just too tired to be creative. You could also make a collection of your favorite recipes or even recipe inspirations using different social media platforms like Pinterest. So now that we've talked about meal planning, I want to talk a little bit about the nutrition behind that and how to create a balanced meal so that you make sure you're getting a good balance of your carb, protein, and healthy fats. So we'll talk a bit about just the principles of healthy eating that I think would apply to any diet, and then go into the food groups and some other nutritional considerations and supplement recommendations. So some principles to a healthy way of eating, whether you're following a vegan diet or any diet, would be to eat when you're hungry and eat until you're appropriately full. Eat a wide variety of foods and colors from each of the food groups. Fill at least half of your plate with fruits and vegetables. Choose healthy carbohydrates like whole grains, legumes, starchy vegetables, and fruits. Choose healthy fats like nuts, seeds, avocado, and coconut. Choose plant-based proteins like whole grains, legumes, nuts, and seeds. Be moderate in your intake of concentrated fats. Watch your sodium intake and added sugar intake. And aim for an hour of physical activity on most days. And of course also, especially on days like this, make sure you're drinking enough water, that you're staying hydrated. An appropriate balance of carbs, fat, and protein is important for overall health, no matter what diet you're following. In general, about 40 to 60% of your calories should be coming from carbohydrates, and 20 to 30% from protein, and 15 to 35% from fats. Of course, depending on your individual nutritional needs, your age, your activity level, these recommendations would vary. I wouldn't really get too worried about your macronutrient breakdown to get started. I think a better place to get started is just focusing on getting a variety of foods from each of the food groups. And that will help to ensure that you're getting all the nutrients that you should be getting. So now we'll talk about the food groups. We'll go through fruits and veggies, the carbohydrates, protein, and healthy fat. So for fruits and vegetables, you want to aim for 10 or more servings of fruits and vegetables of all the colors, a colorful variety, each day. To accomplish this, try to make half of your plate a combination of fruits and vegetables, and then regularly incorporate them into your snacks. For grains are a key source of protein and energy. They usually get kind of a bad rap, but we do need a good amount of carbohydrate in our diet. Like I mentioned, that 40 to 60% of our calories should be coming from carbs. Grains contribute B vitamins, trace minerals, and are about 45% of our dietary intake. We want to choose mostly whole grains, but the majority, the best choice would be intact grains or sprouted intact grains. Carbs from whole foods are consistently protective to our human health. Try to limit your intake of refined carbs like white rice, white pasta, white bread, and replace those for whole grains like brown rice and quinoa. The refined grains have the bran and the germ, which are the most nutritious part of the grain, removed, leaving only the endosperm. And during that refining process, the typical losses are about 80 to 90% of the fiber, 70 to 80% of the vitamins and minerals, and 95% of the protective phytochemicals. So you're losing a lot of that good stuff when you're choosing the fluffier, white, refined carbs. Unfortunately, 90% of the carbs we consume in North America are refined. There is very significant volume of evidence that refined grains increase risk of disease, but unrefined grains are actually protective and associated with a reduced risk of diabetes, heart disease, and some cancers. Even though whole grains are a healthy choice and should be incorporated into our diet, it's important to remember that not all whole grains are created equally. And whole grains can vary widely in how valuable they are to our health. So I mentioned intact grains and sprouted intact grains. Intact grains would be the grain just as they're picked off the plant, nothing added or taken away from them. Some examples would be kamut berries, quinoa, brown rice, barley, and oat groats. Sprouted intact grains would also be an ideal choice, and that's the intact grain that has been sprouted. And that sprouting process will result in decreased anti-nutrients, increased phytochemicals, increased antioxidant load, and a reduced gluten load. From there, you have different variations of whole grains, like broken whole grains, rolled, shredded, ground, flaked, and puffed. And as you go down that list, the actual surface area of the grain is increasing, which will decrease the actual nutritional value of the grain. It also exposes that grain to nutrients, it exposes the nutrients in that grain to air, and increases the glycemic load. So now let's talk about protein. Some of the largest, strongest land animals are herbivores, like elephants, gorillas, rhinos, and hippos, and so that should really make us think. In fact, the 10 largest land animals are all herbivores. Protein-rich plant foods do have some advantages over animal proteins. Plant proteins are a great source of protective phytochemicals and plant sterols. Plant proteins are high in iron and zinc, just like animal proteins, but unlike animal proteins, the plant proteins also provide fiber, calcium, potassium, magnesium, and folate. They are cholesterol-free, low in total and saturated fat, and are free of hormones and antibiotics. So there's a lot more benefit to choosing a plant protein or incorporating them into your diet. Try to incorporate legumes or legume products daily into your diet, since they're the most concentrated vegan source of protein, iron, zinc, fiber, and some other trace minerals. A good goal to aim for would be about 3 servings of protein-rich foods a day. 1 serving of a protein-rich food would be about 1/2 cup of beans, tofu, or tempeh, 1/4 cup of soy nuts, pistachios, or peanuts, 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, 1 cup of soy milk, 1 ounce of veggie meat, or 1 cup of quinoa. So some examples of that 3 servings a day would look like having 2 tablespoons of peanut butter on toast with breakfast, hummus on a wrap with lunch, and 1 cup of quinoa with dinner. So as long as you're having a balance of each of your food groups, it's easy to get a good amount of protein in your diet. Another example of that 3 servings would be like having scrambled tofu with breakfast, barbecue tempeh with lunch, and some lentil soup with dinner. So now let's talk about fats. We do want to have some healthy fats in our diet. We don't want to be totally avoiding that food group, nor do we want to be avoiding any of the food groups. Ideally, we should be replacing unhealthy fats with those more nutrient-dense healthy fats from whole foods. Try to avoid trans fatty acids, limit saturated fats, limit those fried foods and oxidative fats, and choose sources of essential fatty acids. High-fat plant foods such as nuts, seeds, avocados, olives, coconuts are much more nutrient dense. They're going to be richer in fiber, antioxidants, plant sterols and stanols, and phytochemicals. So you're going to get more out of them, even though they're going to be a healthier fat. Try to incorporate 1 serving of nuts and seeds a day, or ideally a serving of both, to improve your cardiovascular health. Nuts and seeds are a primary source of essential fatty acids, so they're a good way to incorporate that, and they tend to be low in saturated fats. They're rich in vitamin E, which most of us only get about half of the vitamin E we need, and they're also going to be a good source of B vitamins and vitamin K. Nuts and seeds have an abundance of trace minerals and are high in many phytochemicals and antioxidants, and are very low in glycemic index and glycemic load. They're also going to be a rich source of arginine, which is a potent vasodilator, which will actually help to improve our blood flow. You guys may have heard of EPA and DHA. EPA is eicosapentaenoic acid, and DHA is docosahexaenoic acid. And both of those are long-chain omega-3 fatty acids, which are crucial to the health of our brain, eyes, nervous system, and they may also help to support healthy cognitive function and cardiovascular health. We need EPA and DHA for rebuilding and producing new cells. While EPA and DHA can be obtained from microalgae sources, and our body can actually produce a small amount through the synthesization of the short-chain omega-3 fatty acid, ALA, which is alpha-linolenic acid. Generally, supplementation is recommended. because that conversion rate tends to be so poor. So the amount that we would get wouldn't be enough to meet our needs. Healthy fats that are a good source of ALA are walnuts, ground flax seeds, chia seeds, and hemp seeds. And omega-3 oils like hemp seed oil and flaxseed oil would also be really good choices to incorporate into salad dressings and some of that cold cooking where you're not applying heat. A recommendation for supplementing your omega-3s to get that DHA and EPA would be a microalgae supplement, about 200 to 300 milligrams 2 to 3 days per week. DHA can be retroconverted to EPA, so it's not necessary to supplement EPA separately. So now I want to talk about some nutritional considerations. We'll talk about fiber, added sugars, and then calcium, iron, vitamin B12, and vitamin D. So for fiber promotes regularity, it enhances immune function, lessens hormonal imbalances, improves gut flora, increases satiety, reduces cravings, reduces cholesterol level and cardiovascular disease risk. It can help stabilize blood sugars, reduce the risk of colorectal cancer, reduce the risk of GI disorders, and enhance immune function. So there's a whole bunch of benefit to having an adequate amount of fiber in our diet. To reap those many benefits, you want to try to aim to have the RDA, or recommended dietary allowance of fiber, which is 38 grams per day for men and 25 grams per day for women. The average American only gets about 15 grams of fiber a day, which is only about half of that recommended intake. Now, there's no fiber in meat, poultry, fish, eggs, dairy, fat, oil, or sugar. So luckily, a vegan diet is naturally going to be a really good source of fiber. You'll get a lot if you're following a plant-based, whole food vegan diet. Ideally, our diet should consist of 10 to 15 grams of fiber from whole foods at each meal. This could be met by having 200 grams of an avocado with breakfast, having a cup of berries and a cup of veggies at lunch, having a half a cup of beans and a half a cup of grains at dinner, and that would give you that 10 to 15 recommended grams of fiber at each meal. So added sugars tend to be a problem in America in general. Added sugars are consistently associated with an increase in obesity, chronic disease, and premature death. The American Heart Association recommends limiting our added sugar intake to a maximum of 9 teaspoons of sugar per day for men and 6 teaspoons of added sugars per day for women. And the average American intake is more like 22 to 30 grams a day, which is about 3 times that recommended. And it's no surprise that the majority of our sugar intake comes from sweetened beverages like iced tea, flavored beverages, sports drinks, and sodas. So we want to make sure that we're getting a lot of water in our diet, but also that we're reading ingredient lists and taking a step back and looking at where some of those added sugars are sneaking in. So now let's talk about calcium and iron. There are 2 nutrients that a lot of people think you can't get enough of unless you're eating some animal proteins and animal foods, but that's a myth. Vegans can consume adequate calcium from foods like calcium-set tofu, soybeans, fortified plant milks, fortified fruit juices, almond butter, tahini, figs, navel oranges, bok choy, kale, and collard. So there's a lot of those vegan foods that will also give you some calcium. An example of how you can meet your daily calcium intake would be by having 2 tablespoons of almond butter with breakfast, a cup of soy milk with a 1/4 cup of almonds as a snack, a cup of broccoli with lunch, and then a cup of cooked kale with 4 ounces of tofu at dinner. And that would give you an adequate amount of calcium. It's also a myth that you need animal protein to get enough iron. A cup of soy milk has more iron than 3 ounces of beef. And half a cup of lentils and 3 ounces of tofu both have twice the amount of iron as in 3 ounces of beef. And 1 ounce of dark chocolate has 3 times the amount of iron in that serving. So there's a lot of vegan choices that we can have. Phytates and tannins can decrease our iron absorption. Tannins are kind of like green tea, black tea, and coffee, and they can actually reduce iron absorption by 50 to 90%. And then foods that are rich in phytates, like wheat bran, can actually decrease iron absorption up to 90%. The good news is that vitamin C and organic acids can help offset the phytates and tannins by breaking their bond with iron. So all we need to do to maximize our absorption of iron in our diet would be to consume vitamin C rich foods with our iron rich foods, or cook in cast iron cookware. Vitamin C can increase iron absorption by 2 to 3 times, and cooking in cast iron cookware can actually increase iron absorption up to 16 times. Vitamin C rich foods would be like your citrus fruits, strawberries, green leafy vegetables, peppers, cauliflower, cabbage, and tomatoes. So an example of that combination of vitamin C and iron would be like having a cup of orange juice with your oatmeal, or having brown rice with spinach, or having lentil soup with tomatoes. Those would all be that vitamin C and iron combo. So I had mentioned supplementing your EPA and DHA. Some other supplements that may be recommended would be for vitamin B12 and vitamin D. For vitamin B12, the general recommendation would be 25 to 100 micrograms daily, or 1,000 micrograms of vitamin B12 2 to 3 days per week. And for vitamin D, it would be 600 to 1,000 international units daily from a plant-derived source. So I hope you guys learned a bit about how to create a balanced meal, about the different food groups and what would go into having a well-balanced whole food diet, and how to then translate that into your meal planning process with those 5 tips. If anyone didn't get a copy of the handouts, there are a few up here. We have a few more over at our booth, and then you can also leave your name and email address. The list is in the back with Mackenzie, and you'll get an email with the digital version of the copies, along with a link if you would like to do a free 3-day trial of the plant-based vegan meal plans that we offer. And I'd be happy to answer any questions, and you can also feel free to email me, which my email is Gina, Gina, @ewellwithgina.com.